This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation.
The work that you do in the off-season and all the preparation and to watch your process take place over a period of time is what excites me.
As the Tigers get their final non-conference matchup against the South Alabama Jaguars on a Saturday night in Death Valley.
Looking for Lacey, spinning. Lacey has it. Left corner of the end zone. Touchdown, Fighting Tigers.
Coming up, Coach Kelly discusses this week's preparation and practice. But first, from the Capital One Studios, inside legendary Tiger Stadium, here are your hosts, former Tiger Gordy Rush, and the voice of your Fighting Tigers, Chris Blair.
Good morning, Tiger fans, as we get ready for another Brian Kelly press conference on this Monday. Happy to be joined with Gordy Rush inside the Capital One Studios. In just a bit, we'll send it across the street. Football operations. Head coach Brian Kelly, as always, will address the media and talk about the win this past Saturday, and then set their sights on another non-conference battle coming up at home. As the big voice guy said, it's South Alabama coming to take on your Tigers. Gordy, let's glad you survived the heat of Saturday. I know you had to try to find the shade. It was extremely warm and muggy. UCLA comes to town. That first half, I mean, I think, everybody I've heard talk about the game, a tale of two halves. Coach Kelly last week during the press conference said, hey, look, we want our offense to get off to a quick start, whether we defer or whether we take the football. We need our defense to get off to a quick start. At South Carolina, Carolina got off to the big start, not the start the defensive wanted. This week, we take the football, go down the field, look great. UCLA does the same thing, and suddenly we're in for quite a battle there in the first half. Second half, not so much. I think LSU showed their dominance en route to the 34-17 win. Tell us what you think coming away from Saturday.
Well, I think Coach Kelly, hit the nail on the head at halftime when we spoke. He said, look, it's not about UCLA, it's about us. And one of the problems that LSU's defense had in the first half, they couldn't get off the field on third downs, fourth downs, big pivotal plays. UCLA was able to make plays, and those are money downs. And there were too many times that there was lapse in assignments and some broken plays. They cleaned that up in the second half. I think that combined with LSU's ability to run the football and lean on UCLA, no question that UCLA standing in the sun for 3.5 quarters, I think, wore them down a little bit because our sideline was in the shade for the second half. I think that played a role. But look, ultimately, it's about this team cleaning stuff up, not beating themselves, getting the run fits, and playing complete football, and that's what you saw in the second half.
Offensively, again, really from start to finish, the offense played well. You had some big plays. You were able to go over the top. Beautiful throw from Garrett to Kyle Parker. Good to see him out there because we said he, along with Chris Hilton, when they get back into this offense, that's going to give the opportunity to stretch the field. They were able to do that. You rushed the ball for 102 yards. I thought Josh Williams ran well. I thought Caden Durham ran well. Caleb Jackson ran the ball well. So, 132 against the Gamecocks, 102 against UCLA, still probably not where they want it to be. But in that second half, if memory serves, I think LSU was 4 of 5 on third down conversions, and for the day, they were excellent. Very similar to what we saw last year when they were close to 60% on third down efficiency.
Look, I think it was an outstanding day on the offensive side of the football, and hopefully there was one or two times they wanted to punch it in down there in the red zone that they did not. Again, you're going to take what defenses give you. And now this is the fourth straight week that UCLA, that didn't show a whole lot of pressure packages against Indiana, they came with a lot of heat. They brought some numbers. They got after Garrett. It opened up some opportunities in the pass game. And one of my big takeaways is that I'd been banging the drum about LSU getting to some sort of vertical stretch. You saw that with Kyle Parker. You saw some balls down the football. And if people are going to play man coverage against you, you have to make them pay. The easiest way to stop people from blitzing is to hit some big plays and make them back up. And they were able to convert on a few more plays this week.
Again, Garrett Nussmeier for his job wins SEC Player of the Week, announced a few moments ago, and it was a season high as far as yardage are concerned, 352 yards, completed 73, I think, percent of his passes, utilized 9 different receivers, including Parker, including Lacey, including Daniels. I mean, the names go on and on and on. So congratulations to Garrett. And it's almost as if, Jacob said it on the radio broadcast, Gordy. He said, it's almost as if we take for granted that every game he's going to throw 300+. And it was an excellent performance by QB1 on Saturday.
I think it's the most completed passes by an LSU quarterback in history after 4 games. I think Cole Kublik actually put that out with the Cole Kublik, what the SEC Network did. I think people are taking for granted how good Garrett has been. And everybody wants to win every football game, and I know that there's been a Nichols mixed in. Nichols is not a bad football team. The fact that you're completing this many passes and as accurate as he's been, he's had an outstanding season thus far.
Still tied for second in the country with 13 touchdown passes. Again, SEC Offensive Player of the Week. And for the second straight week, we're talking about Braden Swinson. And it was funny because when we picked our Defensive Player of the Game on Saturday, I told Jacob, I said, we like to spread the wealth. Mm-hmm. But after the 2 back-to-back performances for Braden Swinson, he's got to be our Defensive Player of the Game because, again, he creates the havoc. Getting home on 3 sacks and being part of 5 for the team and just really disrupting things for the second straight week. Well, we weren't the only ones. The SEC, last week he was Defensive Player of the Week. Today it was announced he's Defensive Lineman of the Week, and well-deserved.
Look, one of the things I like about Braden Swinson, he fits perfectly with Blake Baker in this scheme. His position is the weak side defensive end opposite Savion Jones, but they move him around. They were flip-flopping sides, and of course on third down, we've seen him come from the stand-up linebacker position, the middle linebacker position with inside pressures. He's been fantastic and arguably been the best player on that defense for LSU this season.
Shout out to my buddy Kevin Peoples, by the way.
Yes.
The defensive edge coach really specializes in that, and you've heard Coach Kelly talk about how good he is at coaching up that position, and Braden Swinson certainly a beneficiary of that. All right, you're down there on the field. You watched it. You heard Coach Kelly say we're not doing our jobs defensively. What was done differently in the second half from your vantage point?
Well, I have the run fits. There were no mistakes in the run fits. And then I felt like you saw tighter coverage in the middle of the football field, and that's both in zone and man coverage. I think they're more cognizant that that's where UCLA is attacking us. The safeties crept up a little bit, and I thought they were able to make a couple plays. They did play a little bit more man coverage and got after UCLA in the second half. It's just cleaning up execution of some plays and some missed assignments.
Again, not a lot of rushing yards for UCLA. Again, I thought LSU in the second half just took that completely away, and it became Ethan Garbers. And it was interesting because Garbers, it appeared, had success when getting out of the pocket, especially rolling to his right and throwing on the run. It seemed like they wanted to keep him in the pocket, or maybe LSU didn't let him get out of the pocket. One way or another, when he was in there, didn't look as comfortable throwing the football. And let's give some credit to LSU's pressure.
Absolutely. Give LSU some credit. And again, LSU did a nice job of a couple times they hit him. They had 4 sacks in the first half. I think that affected it a little bit, and they were stopping the UCLA run game. So it made UCLA one-dimensional. They were under 10 yards rushing right at first half, and then they were able to run the ball, and of course the game was in hand when they had some their running success. But LSU made them one-dimensional. To their credit, UCLA got better from the week before against Indiana. They're a much better team than the film that I saw, the half against Hawaii, and they really did struggle offensively. And Garbers made some plays. He was able, as you said, to get outside the pocket. He was able to step up in the pocket and avoid some of the stuff that he was unable to avoid in Indiana. Give him credit. Eric Bieniemy's a good football coach. We said that a couple times on the radio.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
He's going to figure things out and get them going. It's a huge transitional year down there, and UCLA was much better than they showed against Indiana.
Well, the Tigers pick up their third win of the season. They get the win 34-17. They remain 1-0 in the SEC. They'll get back to that in a couple of weeks. But South Alabama on the menu this coming Saturday with kickoff just after 6:45 Central Time, which I'm sure everybody's excited about.
Yes.
Although, just looking ahead to the forecast, it looks like it's not quite going to be as hot as it was this past Saturday. But everybody loves Saturday night in Death Valley, except probably South Alabama.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about the Jaguars coming up in just a bit. Obviously, I'm sure maybe the first question today when Coach Kelly opens up the forum will be about Harold Perkins, and we'll have to wait to get the official announcement. But again, you told us during the game, just with a brief look on that sideline, you didn't think it looked good. But we don't try to, we're not doctors. We don't try to give prognoses. But it seems like as the weekend has moved on and we've started here on Monday, the news is not going to be good. But we'll wait and get it officially from Coach Kelly.
Yeah, look, the thing that gave me a little hope is I watched him walk off the field to the locker room on his own power. And 90%, he looked to be about 90%, but there's always that question. And they'll take an X-ray and then try to get some of the fluid out there and then go in and look at it a little deeper on Monday. So we'll actually yesterday or possibly today. So we'll find out here shortly.
All right. Well, we'll lead you up to high noon. That's when Coach Brian Kelly will enter the room, the team room there at Football Operations, and recap Saturday and look ahead to the matchup with South Alabama. Speaking of the Jaguars, we will do that. They are 2-2 on the season, 1-0 in the early Sun Belt race. We'll talk about the Jaguars and what we know when we come back right after this.
There was a time when a person's word was enough. A time when a handshake meant something, and integrity really mattered. For over 70 years, the values of Farm Bureau Insurance have been rooted in hard work, faith, and family. In that time, we've seen the world change in many ways. What hasn't wavered is Farm Bureau Insurance's commitment to protect our customers' way of life and serve the communities in which they live when they need us most. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at lafarmbureau.com.
Join the celebration of Great American RV Superstores as we mark our 40th anniversary. Enjoy over 40% off MSRP and upgrade to an RV that fits your lifestyle. Hurry to your nearest Great American RV Superstores or visit greatamericanrv.com. It's time to make the most of our 40 years, and when we celebrate, you save big. Great deals, greater adventures at Great American RV Superstore. Making memories one weekend at a time. 2023 Jayco J Flight 224BH. Stock number 51600 in Heflin. MSRP 40,079. Car savings 21,088. Sale price 18,991 plus tax, title, and license.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
yeah,
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
And here's Heather with the weather.
Well, it's beautiful out there, sunny and 75, almost a little chilly in the shade. Now, let's get a read on the inside of your car. It is hot. You've only been parked a short time, and it's already 99 degrees in there. Let's not leave children in the back seat while running errands. It only takes a few minutes for their body temperatures to rise, and that could be fatal.
Cars get hot, fast, and can be deadly. Never leave a child in a car. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Just moments away from the Brian Kelly press conference, presented by the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. Once again, here are Gordy Rush and Chris Blair.
That's right, hanging out in the Capital One studio before Coach Brian Kelly takes over at Football Operations to preview this week. LSU at home for the second straight weekend. Second straight weekend out of conference. This time the Sun Belt comes calling. It's South Alabama from over in Mobile Way. And this is a team, as I mentioned before we went to break, Gordy, 2-2 on the year. They've looked, impressive in those two wins. They scored nearly 90 points against Northwestern State, 87-10, the final there. And then last Thursday night, I think, did a lot for Major Applewhite and his taking over as head coach in the way they throttled Appalachian State 3,300 feet up at the Rock in Boone. I mean, that game was over midway through the first quarter. I mean, they just dominated that performance. And the two guys that really stand out when we talk offensively, under the tutelage of Coach Major Applewhite, former Baton Rouge Catholic High, and now going to be coming back to Baton Rouge with his team, is the fact that their quarterback and their running back, two young guys, by the way, a redshirt freshman, and a true freshman looked like seasoned vets out there on Thursday night. I had a chance to watch that game, and they're impressive at running back and quarterback.
Look, their offense looks a lot like South Carolina. What they want to do, they'll run one back, one tight end, a lot of misdirection. They want to run the football. And they're going to test LSU's run fits. So, you go back to the last couple of weeks, the Nichols and certainly South Carolina. LSU had some struggles with run fits. Hopefully they can clean it up because that's what they do well. Gio Lopez is a left-handed quarterback. He can run the football, does a nice job with an RPO game. And then you're ready for this one. This will be all you, Chris, on Saturday. Fluff Bothwell, true freshman. Fluff F-L-U-F-F, Bothwell.
Yeah, and watching him, there's no fluff.
He is a load.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a big boy. Lopez is 6 foot, 205, so he's definitely an athletic type of quarterback. They do a nice job with a little misdirection package. 2-2 on the season. They lost to North Texas, but they scored a lot of points. Their punter kicked the ball into the back of the shield, and then they had an absolute blown coverage on a 70-yard plus touchdown. Otherwise, they were right in that football game, and they crushed App State. And, of course, they scored 87 points against Northwestern. So they are executing on offense. So it's going to be a challenge here for LSU defensively. Again, to be disciplined in those gap fits.
Fluff Bothwell, by the way, 5'10", I believe, right at 220 pounds. So a low center of gravity, and you can tell he's a big guy, runs hard. You watch the App State film, which I did again this morning. Mm-hmm. He's not going down on first contact. I mean, he just shimmies them away like they're not even there. And you know what's interesting, because the offense obviously a little skewed when you see the 87-10 score. Their stats are going to be up a little bit. But when you look at what he did against Appalachian State, he was averaging on the ground just under 10 yards a carry. I mean, he just dominated. And this is a South Alabama team that Kane Womack took over the program and really created the best run. I mean, this is a program that didn't exist until 2009. And when Coach Womack got there, I guess 3 years ago, if memory serves, that's kind of the most wins they've been able to put together. Their winning percentage went through the roof. So he leaves to take the D.C. position at Alabama, surprised a few people, but he resigns the position, and they move up Major Applewhite, who, again, had a time, I think, 2 years at Houston as a head coach. But it's a team that was built defensively. I mean, that's where their stars are. And they've done a good job of keeping other teams and Power 5 teams from taking their players over the last couple of years. And they dominated Appalachian State. They played in the backfield with the Appalachian State quarterback all evening long last Thursday night.
Of course, Mobile, Alabama, they have outstanding facilities now. The Senior Bowl has helped them and have a turf field, brand new indoor. They've done a nice job recruiting. They went to a bowl game. They had their first bowl win a season ago, and they're sound defensively. So, again, this is I know it's a non-conference game. This is not a rent-a-win. This is a good football team. Vegas has the line at 20, and I think that line's about right.
We're going to be going to football operations, as always, coming up in just a few minutes. But here's what I'll ask you. Based on the numbers, and who knows, LSU may dominate South Alabama. We certainly hope that they do. But how is this fit in the schedule nicely for LSU, taking on a team that, as prolific as they have been up to this point, get a week off, and then you're going to see an Ole Miss team that also is pretty prolific offensively and much better defensively.
Yeah, here's what I like real quick about this matchup. South Alabama is going to run a lot of the same run game that Ole Miss will run. And one of the biggest things for this LSU defense, again, is improvement in run fits and making sure, especially on the back end, that everybody's in the right position. This will be a good test to get you prepared for 2 weeks when Ole Miss comes in, because Ole Miss does some of the same stuff, and Jackson Dart can run the football.
Again, looking for quick starts. I'll go ahead and say that's probably in order for Coach Brian Kelly. He'll probably talk about that once again. Overall, I thought LSU, I say that and now I hesitate because obviously Harold Perkins going down was a big loss. But, on a day like that, it was pretty good. It wasn't as injury-riddled as I thought it could have been for both teams.
No, absolutely. I mean, hot day, physical day like that. And, the thing about Perkins, it was just an odd injury. I mean, he was in zone for it to be his outside knee, and he was in zone coverage, breaking back on a crossing route for that. Yeah, look, I'm interested to see what LSU does defensively, adjustment-wise. The last 2 weeks they played a 4-3 with 3 linebackers on the field with Whit Weeks. Obviously, Perkins going down. Do they go back to that 4-2-5? Does Major Burns return to the star linebacker position?
All right, well, this is what we call stalling in the show. Anything surprise you about the SEC thus far with a couple of conference games behind us?
Well, the South Carolina, Kentucky, they're much better teams than we thought.
I think so.
Before we went there, obviously Tennessee has been very, very impressive, as has Texas thus far. And how about credit to Vanderbilt? I think a lot of people just circled that game, the second to last game in Tiger Stadium, as a gimme, and they go up to Como and almost pull off an upset.
I'm sure Luther Burden was happy that they got the win because he wasn't happy last week. They're on SEC Network all the time.
Vanderbilt.
I give him credit. He actually said that on the SEC Network.
Oh, I know that he did. But, look, and this is the SEC, right? And if sooner or later, Vanderbilt's a nice place. Who doesn't want to go to school in Nashville? I know traditionally they have not been strong, but you get somebody who figures out how to get student athletes in there, and Vanderbilt from time to time can be a pain in the butt.
Do you buy after roughly 4 weeks of football that right now the SEC is kind of cut up in sections, like a top four and then maybe 2 or 3 just outside of that and then the back end?
Yeah, I do. I think I've got 2 or 3. I think Texas and Ole Miss and certainly Tennessee are up there. I think Alabama, let's see this week how they play against Georgia, Alabama, Georgia right there. And then I can group a lot of teams together. And, of course, there's 1 or 2 teams down there. They're struggling. A lot of people are in that mix, I think, on the second tier.
Were you surprised that Alabama's favored or Georgia's favored by 2 in Tuscaloosa?
I am.
I am, too.
I mean, Alabama's returning the quarterback. It's in Tuscaloosa. So you're telling me that that's on a neutral field, that's Georgia's 5-6 point favorite after they beat Kentucky by a point?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
That would surprise me.
We'll see. We got several days before that comes our way. 6:45 again is the kickoff for South Alabama and LSU. And again, it's going to be nice to have another night game. It's going to be nice. Hopefully, the stuff down in the Gulf is, not to put that off on anybody else,
right.
But it looks like it. Still a lot of things can change, but. Right now, you feel pretty good that Baton Rouge will be spared and we'll be able to get everything underway just the way we want to at 6:45. But I think this is an important game, just like you do, just to again, and I'm sure Coach Kelly may talk about it, just to get us right at this point of the season.
Hey, look, you got a lot of young players on that back end, and I keep going back to the secondary. I mean, you're starting Ashton Stamps as a second-year player there. Gilbert has come over from Texas A&M. You've got Spears and Kyron Jackson that are playing safety. You've moved Sage Ryan all over the field. I think the more reps they can get, and the more reps they can get with a unit, and that's the hard thing is you've been Alexander's been down. You've been rotating 8 to 10 people in the secondary. I'm a big believer in the secondary. All kind of move as one, and the more of it you can play with the same unit, you know what each other are doing, and the communication, you can get that right.
All right, we're going to head over to football operation. Coach Brian Kelly taking the podium. It's the Brian Kelly press conference.
Best 12. All right, new week. We'll recap a little bit about the win this weekend. Excited about it. Obviously, the one thing that we're not excited about is the injury that a lot of you saw that was out there on social media. Harold Perkins will be lost for the season with a significant knee injury. We're not certain about the specifics relative to time and place for surgery, but it looks to be, an ACL injury. And, again, more details relative to that I can't get into right now, but certainly an injury that, we feel terrible about, especially for Harold and, the work that he's done to put himself in a great position. Look, you lose players all the time. You just feel terrible for them individually because of all the work and time they put in. We'll have somebody else step up like we've had this year, right? We lose Jacobian, and, that was a tough loss for us. But a true freshman, Ahmad Bro, comes in. Does a great job for us the last 3 weeks, and plays great football for us. We lose John Emery. Another true freshman comes in, and Kay Durham. Does a great job for us. And similarly, we'll have somebody step in here as well. And the next man in will come in and, rally and put us in a position where, we have success as well. So these are difficult, but we've got really good players that come in and step in and fill in for LSU and move forward. So that was the tough part. The good part was a really good win. What I liked about it the most is I love the energy, the way we started, offensively, driving the ball down and scoring. And what I didn't like is we had some, mental mistakes defensively, but we battled. And in the second half, we shut out a power 4 opponent, held them to 14 yards rushing, 64 total yards in the second half. And that goes largely unnoticed, to hold anybody to 64 yards total offense in the second half and 14 yards rushing, and then shut them out 17-0, says a lot about the way this team continues to fight. And now over the last 3 wins they've had, they're 58 points scored, 16 let up in the second half. So those are really good things to build off of. Second half performances, now we want to build on that for first half performances. But we know we can dominate our opponents in the second half, and now we've got to be able to do that for 4 quarters. So a lot of really good things to take away from that, and a lot of things that we got to continue to build on. So moving into some of the highlights, Garrett Nussmeier was named the Offensive SEC Player of the Week, continues to do great things, continues to grow in a lot of areas that maybe we don't particularly see. It's not just throwing the football, it's getting in the right plays, making the right checks, and taking care of the football. He's playing at a high level, really a high level. And then on defense, Braden Swinson, SEC Lineman of the Week. His consistent performance has allowed us to get the kind of pass rush, him, Savion, our interior players certainly doing a great job of disrupting offenses. 12 sacks combined, getting the ball out, getting negative plays, really doing a nice job. So those 2 guys getting SEC Player of the Week says a lot about the kind of things that our team is doing on both sides of the ball. It's hard to get those awards in the SEC with so many teams and so many quality players. To get highlighted like that, you got to take a moment, step back, and go, okay, maybe they are doing a couple of things that are pretty good. And we certainly are. So proud of those guys. Mason Taylor, another pretty good player, 8 receptions, 77 yards. Receiving yards, becomes the all-time leading receiver in receiving yards by a tight end. And he'll look to continue to eclipse some more records here at LSU. The offensive line didn't give up a sack for the 3rd time this year. Again, great work in terms of keeping Garrett clean and doing a great job. And as I mentioned, that's 5 sacks for a second straight game for our defense. Really, from my perspective, right? I mean, you're disrupting offenses in a manner that we hadn't over the last couple of years. Special teams, Ramos again, field goals, really clean. And maybe one of the biggest plays of the day early on, the punt from the goal line, the play that Xavion Thomas made on the punt where he was Barry Bonds. Do you guys know Barry Bonds? You young guys here, gals, played center field. Yeah, I just thought maybe we'd do a little great catch, run over the back and make that great catch. I mean, if he doesn't make that catch, that ball hits on the ground. It could be on the 5-yard line. he saves us about 40 yards in field position, and we convert there. But just a great special teams play. I wanted to make sure that we highlighted a little bit of special teams because he's been outstanding and deserves a little bit of credit there. You probably wanted Willie Mays for his catch, but I didn't think I could go that far back here. So I thought maybe Barry Bonds or somebody like that. But anyway. So that's a little bit about the game this weekend. South Alabama comes into town. Really good football team. Major Applewhite's done a great job. Catholic high grad. And first year at South Alabama. Did a great job at Houston. Long time Texas coach. Played there. Had a great road win against Appalachian State this past week. Really, tore them apart 48-14. They rushed for 320 yards against a very proud program in Appalachian State at App State. So, they've got 28 FBS transfer portal players on the roster, 9 of them from SEC schools. This is a team that has some really good football players, led by their quarterback, Gio Lopez, and their running back, Fluff Bothwell. These are 2 outstanding freshman players that you have to keep an eye on. Pritchett, the wide receiver, is very, very gifted and skilled, and an aggressive defense. They can pass rush, really good backers. So this will be a great challenge for us. A team that's coming in with nothing to lose, but certainly a team that is very capable in a lot of areas. Very athletic, outstanding in terms of their schemes, well coached. And again, we'll have to play really good football against South Alabama. So, with that, we'll open up to questions.
Coach, right up the middle. You talked a little bit about it after the game. Could you expand more on the job that Coach Peoples is doing with the diversity of the players that he's coaching, and also your interior defensive linemen, Suggs, McKinley, both had sacks this week. How important will it be as you guys try to figure out this linebacker role going forward?
Yeah, so, Kevin's obviously done a great job with the versatility of, the different players that he has. Savion Jones, Swinson, different types of players. One drops in coverage. The other one is much bigger and more physical at the line of scrimmage. But they also have to rush the passer. They also have to be able to, be great run defenders. Some of the plays that Swinson made in terms of hustle plays, just getting him to play at a higher level coming into to this year. And then add a Gabe Relaford, who's a true freshman that's starting to see some playing time. Deshaun Womack, Parrish Shand, that whole group has really contributed in a large degree. And then inside, we've been I think a lot of the offseason was about, what are you going to do with the defensive line? They have been a strength for us. Bo's done a great job of making sure that those guys are gap conscious and fundamentally sound and getting off the ball. And we're playing with, as I mentioned, we had, at one time, we had Relaford, we had McKinley, we had Ahmad Bro, all on the field at one time. So we had a lot of young freshman players. You had Spears at safety. So, you have five freshmen, true freshmen on the field at one time, and those defensive tackles are doing a really good job. You had Suggs with, his first step quickness. He's healthier now. He was battling an ankle injury. We got him back in the mix. Now now you've got some versatility. You've got some big bodies that can stop the run. You get some guys now that can add some pass rush. It's starting to come together for us, and I think our part of this is, with first-year coaches and new players, they're starting to get to know who their guys are and who they can lean on in certain situations.
Yeah, Brian, I know there's always a next man up mentality, but what do you lose in Harold Perkins as a player and a person? Maybe some things we're not privy to as a media we don't see.
Well, he carries obviously an immediate. You got to pay attention to him, right? So from an offensive standpoint, you got to know where he is, so you're game playing against a guy that can wreck your day. So you lose that piece right away. But I think, our players clearly understand in this game that you're going to get injuries. And so we're not going to lose, our identity or fall apart because of it. But you feel bad for the individual more than anything else. But I think from the other side, I think people would see it as well. They lost a huge piece of their defense, and he is a great player, but there's 10 other players that make that thing happen. And I think it really helps now that our guys understand all 11 have to work harder and have to work together to be the kind of defense we want to be.
Just a follow-up on Harold. Can you speak to the personnel, like who may shift, what you may do to replace Harold and his reps?
Well, if we want to play with 3 linebackers on the field, the first guy that would move out there would be Whit Weeks. He would play that Sam linebacker position. Greg would move to the Mike linebacker, West Weeks would move to the Mike linebacker, and Greg Penn would play the Will. So if we wanted to be in Buffalo, we feel like we're still in a really good position. We would probably activate Xavier Atkins as the next Will in that kind of situation. So that's where we would be if we wanted to stay in the configuration that we were currently in last weekend. We would probably look at also going back into a star position with Major Burns playing the star, backed up by Kylan Jackson. That would be the other kind of look that we would have. So we have the versatility to be in either one of those defensive structures.
When you see the disruptive plays, disruptive plays are up, and I would think your turnovers are causing it, and then you give up a big play or something like that. Are you able to have patience with it and say, okay, those things are still happening on occasion, especially in the first half? As you said, the second half was better, but are you seeing the progress that you want to see overall?
Yeah, so I think you have to look at what are the big plays, right? The ones that you don't accept at any level are the big play runs, right, where you don't have structure to your defense and you don't have the levels. The runs that we saw against South Carolina, we eliminated those. They were not part of what happened on Saturday. These were mental mistakes. We didn't cover a back coming out of the backfield. We didn't come out of a blitz pattern when we should have been coming out of a blitz pattern and not recognizing, what that was. We got beat on a fabulous throw down the sideline on a back shoulder, I can live with those. Those are competitive plays down the field when you're in man-to-man coverage. Maybe the ones that we'd like to be better on are, the in-breaking routes in man coverage. Let's take away the inside, right? Let's take away the inside. Force the ball outside. Those are the things with some younger players that we've got to just be better at. And those are the areas that we believe that when you walk away at the end of the day, those are correctable, right? The big play runs for 60 and 70 yards, they can't happen. Those are unacceptable. Those were corrected. They can't happen moving forward. There's going to be those occasional plays down the field. We eliminated them in the second half. I think we're on the right path relative to what we want to see defensively. Now let's do our job and eliminate some of the mental mistakes that we saw in the first half.
Can you help me understand the schematics behind Buffalo versus your star package? Is it as simple as
3 linebackers versus putting a nickel in?
Is it just pass coverage versus run support? What do you like about the two?
Well, it's really formationally driven. So let's call it as it is. Harold Perkins was gifted enough to play a receiver and play both as a linebacker and a nickel. We don't have any of those guys hanging around the locker room other than one. So, you're either in 3 linebackers, right, and then have to deal with that linebacker being in space and covering a lot in space, i.e. against most likely a receiver, or you got to take him out and you got to put a guy that's a hybrid that can play a little bit, in the box, but mostly in space. So that's generally what you're dealing with.
Coach, you mentioned Xavier Atkins, but how are the freshman linebackers sort of developing so far?
I think they're developing at the pace that they should be, right? Look, we got a lot of football ahead of us, right? This is an important week for us, as we continue to develop. But, after the bye week, welcome to the SEC, right? We go 7 weeks with, bang, 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 straight of SEC competition. So there's a lot of football ahead of us. We're gradually, you saw Don McKinley, in action. You're going to see more guys that we're gradually bringing along to get involved in more action because the schedule obviously is going to be robust as we go into the last 7-8 weeks of this schedule. So this has really been about building our football team, getting to know our team, know our strengths, know our weaknesses, the things that we have to be better at in all phases of the game. But at the same time, developing some of those younger players so that when we have to call on them, we can get the kind of play necessary to win SEC games.
Looked like you played a lot of different guys at safety. After watching the film, can you just kind of walk through how you thought that group did on Saturday?
I think what we're looking for at the safety position more than anything else is, look, we're not putting them on an island as much as what we want is real good leverage on the football, sure tackling, right, and great communication. If I could break it down to just those three things, if you give me those three things, then we'll begin to add to the menu in terms of doing other things. Then we'll put you on the slot a little bit more. Then we'll bring you down and blitz you a little bit more off the edge. But we need those three things. So we kind of peeled it back a little bit and wanted to look at more safeties to get those three things down. The fundamentals of playing really good safety require those three things. We saw a little bit more of that this weekend. We need to see a little bit more as we get ready to move into SEC play.
Hey, Coach Trevor here. You mentioned it on the offset there, but Braden Swinson, back-to-back weeks, I think he's got 5 sacks these last 2 weeks. What has allowed him to kind of have this, breakout the last couple weeks, and kind of what did you see for him this offseason?
I think I said this after the game. It takes two. It takes coaching, but it takes a player that is committed to that and has worked at it. He has worked really hard in the offseason. He's had a great offseason. He's trained the right way. He's done all the right things relative to nutrition and taking care of himself. He's highly committed. He's a veteran player, too. He's played a lot of football. But I think the coaching and I think his want and desire to be the best, it's really connected well with him and Coach Peoples.
Coach, you talked a little bit about South Alabama's offense in your opening statement, but could you share some more about what makes these guys so explosive and how challenging it'll be to defend them this week?
Well, I think you always got to start with personnel. I think the back is really good. He's 218, 220 pounds. He's physical. He's not elite speed, but he's got great vision. He keeps moving his feet. I mean, he's just a really good back. I mean, and you'd be so surprised watching him that he's a freshman. The quarterback's 220 pounds. He's averaging, I think, close to 8 yards every time he touches the ball. Just extremely efficient. And the scheme is outstanding. I mean, I think Major does a great job of, changing things up formationally. They've got a really good scheme in the way they do things. It's not just a two-man, offense because the receiver's really good as well, but solid offensive line, good scheme, well coached, and the quarterback is difficult to bring down too.
Hey, Coach, this is more just making sure on Harold with him being draft eligible next spring. You don't have any information that would undercut the assumption that he has played his last game here, and
I don't think any of those decisions are made. Way too soon for him to or his family to have made any kind of declaration whether this is his last game or not. I think they're just trying to get a hold of the surgery and the rehab associated with it. He'll take all that into consideration. And then when it's time to make a decision, he'll make a decision. Certainly he has plenty of time before he has to make that decision.
If it is, could you just offer maybe some more big picture comments on his 3 seasons so far? That what isn't, the impressions?
Well, it's been 2 seasons and 4 games, so it's not even 3. So, again, I think it's really too soon for us to get into any of the, what happens if this is his last season. It's 2 seasons of competition in 4 games, and I think probably just rushing any kind of comments relative to whether this is his last season or not. I think we'd have to probably just tap the brakes on that.
Coach, how's Zy Alexander, and if he has to miss any time, how do you feel about the depth at your cornerback position now that we're 4 weeks into the year?
Yeah, Zy, right now we would list him as questionable, but that could change. We don't have to get into that reporting because it's not an SEC game, but I would say he's questionable right now. We'll see how he feels tomorrow. But, we've got some flexibility there. I feel good about the corner situation. We've got some depth there. We can move some guys around, position flexibility with Javian Toviano can flip over to corner as well. So we're in a pretty good position there.
Coach over here, so Xavier Thomas, you just talked about the play he made on special teams, and you see you get him involved in the running game a little bit, the short passing game. Just talk about his versatility and all that he brings to the table for y'all.
Yeah, I just like the way he plays the game. He plays it with, right on the edge with kind of almost a recklessness, but under control. He plays with confidence, plays like a veteran that's been there. And look, you love that because you want to go out and, especially in special teams, you want to go out and make blocks for him. You want to go out there and give him a chance to make a play for you. I think he's the best in the country. So why wouldn't you want to be on that team? But I think it's the same way on offense, and he's carrying that, to what he does in running routes and running the football. We missed the block on that counter. If we just kick out the end, that thing's gone for a touchdown. We just miss a block there. So, I like what he's doing. The versatility, as you mentioned, is what he brings.
Hey, Brian, 2 questions for you. I'm curious if you've ever matched up with Major Applewhite in any games in the past, and what do you kind of remember about those if you have, and maybe how some of his schematics or thought processes have changed? And then 2, how are you guys able to, I guess, somewhat accurately replicate what defenses are giving you guys in practice for Garrett to be able to go out and play the way he's been playing?
I have not, but I know Major Applewhite. We got a chance to spend a good amount of time together in off seasons in the past, clinicking and getting to know him, and got to know him since I've gotten to LSU with his contacts and relationships here in Baton Rouge. I have a lot of respect for him and what he's accomplished in his career. I think we've been, a bit within the realm of giving Garrett what to expect, but it's been a lot more pressure fronts than we expected. We thought we'd get teams backing off by this time, but they haven't seemed to do that, which has worked out pretty good for us too. He's thrown the ball effectively. Again, I think from our perspective, it's even changed our thought process a little bit in terms of, preparation, is that, we have to even take another segment of practice and just have our run game focused on, more pressures. Because if teams are going to continue to do that, we have to look at, what that run game looks like with even more hats.
You got Kyle Parker in the end zone. Yeah. What does that mean for a young player to score his first touchdown and his confidence moving forward?
Huge. I've always said, how do you get these players confidence? They got to go make plays. Confidence comes with making plays. You could talk about confidence all the time, but he needed to go and make a play. And he made the play, and that was one of the worst dances that I've ever seen in an end zone. He looked like me dancing. So we're going to work on that next. But it was so good for him. He's worked so hard. He had the injury, kind of set him back. He had a great camp. And I thought he was poised to really break out. And then he had the elbow injury that kind of set him back. So I was really happy for him to get that catch. And I think that's going to really help him moving forward.
Just staying in that theme, the ability to spread the ball around. I think 9 different guys had catches.
Nine, yep.
Yeah, just the job that Joe's doing, obviously Garrett's doing, and the targets are doing.
Yeah, I think it's the nature of the offensive structure in terms of what we've done and how we've done it. I think Joe and Cortez has a large hand in the passing game in terms of making sure that. Look, if you're just focusing in on one guy, it's last year we had obviously an alpha, and we had BT as well. This year it can go to anybody, and now you add the tight end into the mix as your leading receiver right now. It's very difficult to defend us, and the backs are catching it for touchdowns, the tight ends, a number of the receivers. It's a pretty comprehensive passing game. I think we need Chris Hilton back, and this seems to be the week where we feel like we're going to get him back healthy. If we can add that vertical passing game, another element to it, I think it just makes it even better. And that's what this has been about. This has been about getting all the pieces in place, working out some of the issues that we needed to get better at, doing our job consistently, play in and play out, getting to know the personnel, the strengths and the weaknesses. We've had to get through some injuries. Unfortunately, a big one this weekend, but we'll get through this one as well, and play a really tough opponent this weekend in South Alabama. So then move on from there. Good? All right. Thank you.
Coach Brian Kelly with this week's press conference, of course, making it official. Unfortunately, Harold Perkins Jr. lost for the season due to a traumatic knee injury, as he touched on. Hoping to get Chris Hilton back at full strength. He was dressed, did not see him on Saturday, but hoping to get him into the mix along with Kyle Perker, who he touched on in today's press conference on that touchdown catch. They get ready for South Alabama. It'll be 6:45 inside Tiger Stadium, and we'll have some last-minute programming notes before we send you on your way. It's the Brian Kelly press conference.
NIL is dominating the college sports scene, and LSU has positioned itself at the front of the pack. But to remain competitive and stay ahead of the rest, we need your support. Bayou Traditions is the official NIL collective of LSU Athletics. Join the tradition and become a member by signing up online at BayouTraditionsCollective.com. Members receive exclusive access to LSU student athletes that you can't get anywhere else. Help ensure LSU remains a leader in the NIL arena. Sign up today at BayouTraditionsCollective.com.
There was a time when a person's word was enough, a time when a handshake meant something, and integrity really mattered. For over 70 years, the values of Farm Bureau Insurance have been rooted in hard work, faith, and family. In that time, we've seen the world change in many ways. What hasn't wavered is Farm Bureau Insurance's commitment to protect our customers' way of life and serve the communities in which they live when they need us most. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at lafarmbureau.com.
Hey, Tiger fans 12 and younger, don't miss your chance to be a part of Mike's Kids Club, presented by Shell, the exclusive kids club of LSU Athletics. Join Mike's Kids Club for only $25. Get the official Mike's Kids Club t-shirt, free admission to select LSU athletic events, and much, much more. To learn about upcoming events and to join, please visit LSUMKC.com. The Mike's Kids Club, presented by Shell.
The Southeastern Conference. It's the land of legends, the places, the faces, and moments.
And he's going for it. It's a touchdown!
We've seen the confetti fall again and again. We're not done. It's time for the next generation to make their mark and go from 14 deep to 16 strong. It's a whole new ball game in the SEC, and it just means more.
Wrapping up this week's Brian Kelly press conference, presented by the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation, with some final thoughts and programming notes. Here again is Chris Blair.
This coming week, LSU will host South Alabama Saturday night inside Death Valley. Coming up later this week, Coach Brian Kelly will come to TJ Ribs for the Brian Kelly Show. It all gets underway at 7 o'clock. You can tune in live all across the state on the LSU Sports Radio Network, streaming for free, also live on the LSU Sports mobile app. presented by BASF. Hope to see you there at TJ Ribs. If you can't make it, though, you can tune in and get the very latest on the Fighting Tigers. Then on Saturday, it is a Saturday night, and the weather should be great and cooperative. We'll get everything underway beginning at 4:30 here along network lines. It'll be LSU game day. Hunt Palmer, Marlon Favorite, Brandon Taylor leading us up to kickoff again just after 6:45 between the Jaguars and your Tigers. That wraps up another Brian Kelly press conference. My thanks to Gordy Rush. We thank you for joining us. Hope you'll do it again next time. We'll go into an off week next week, so I don't know the date, but it's the Monday before the Ole Miss game. How about that? Join us again for the Brian Kelly press conference. For all involved, this is Chris Blair saying so long, everybody, and go Tigers.